Okay, we all set?
Yeah, we're good.
I'm on Northern Price.
So that's why I'm sitting here.
Okay, it's 7 o'clock. We're about to start. So I'd like to welcome everyone to the Town of Waynesburg Planning Board meeting of October 19th, 2023. The agendas for the meeting, tonight's meeting have been published on the town's website. They're available at the door. We have a pretty short agenda tonight, but we have some significant things to discuss. Before we start, I'd like to introduce the board members to the audience. Those name, associate a name and a face. My name is Jeff Schmidt. I'm serve as the chairperson of the Town of Waynesburg Planning Board.
Good evening, I'm Mike Harris, I'm the vice chair.
Matt Hoffman, planning board member.
Mike Walpole, planning board member.
Good evening, Elizabeth Novak, planning board member.
Josh Houghton, planning board member.
Teresa Baker, planning board attorney.
We also have with us
Code enforcement officer Chris Barkwell.
and
Corinne Van Duzen, planning and zoning clerk.
okay. And Corinne is the one that'll do all the work tonight, so the rest of us, if we just talk, she has to, she has the responsibility, not too much responsibility. But again, welcome everyone. Our meetings are organized in a fashion where we have what we describe as the open forum. Allows anyone in the audience, or I don't believe they can comment online. No comments. To offer up any kind of comment, complaint, observation they have that may be well, especially of interest to them personally, and maybe of interest to the board, as we don't discriminate on who's more interested. Kind of the rules of that are you identify yourself by your name and your location within the town or the area, and you limit your comments to about 4 minutes. And we're not strict on that, but we don't want to go on and on and on. And also that part of the comments, if there's an agenda item on tonight's agenda that you want to comment on, you reserve your comments for that portion of tonight's meeting instead of the open forum. So those kind of ground rules in effect. I make a motion to open the open forum, the Town of Waynesburg Planning Board, October 19th, 2023 meeting.
I can second that.
With the addition.
Chairman Schmidt,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Harris,
Yes.
Board Member Novak,
Yes.
Board Member Howard,
Yes.
Board Member Hoffman,
Yes.
Board Member Walpole.
Yes.
So feel free, if anyone has some comments, I'd like to hear with the board. Silence is happening. Come on, say something, other than I make a motion to close the open forum for the October 19th, 2023 meeting.
I'll second.
Chairman Schmidt,
Yes.
Board Member Hoffman,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Harris,
Yes.
Board Member Novak,
Yes.
Board Member Howard.
Yes.
Board Member Walpole.
Yes.
Okay, the next items on the agenda, typically we have a sketch plan review, there's nothing on tonight's agenda for that. And now tonight we have 2 public hearings. The first would be Chris and Nicole Baylaw, located on 10057 Western Turnpike, special use permit to convert an existing commercial structure to a residential structure. So with that in mind, I'd like to make a motion to open the public hearing for Chris and Nicole Baylaw.
Chairman Schmidt,
Yes.
Board Member Hoffman, Board Member
Yes.
Walpole, Vice Chairman Harris,
Yes.
Board Member Novak,
Yes.
Board Member Howard,
Yes.
and Board Member Hoffman.
Yes.
Okay, so is there someone here that's kind of,
Yes, sir.
would have to get it kind of for the benefit of those in the audience, just describe what your process is, what your project is, and you've been here before. The opportunity to.
This is the original drawing that we submitted to you 2 months ago. When we asked for our application for a special use permit, this is the second drawing we had submitted. It's a little more detailed and we cleaned up a few things that were of concern last time. We're well underway of designing the septic system. for both buildings with the, help here, Lance Manis overseeing the project. And as simple as that, we're, trying to convert the existing commercial country outlet building to a residential so-called in-law apartment.
You just identify which one of the buildings in the front of this, so everybody knows.
Yes, so. There we go. Oh, yeah, press on A. Okay, so this building right here is the commercial structure that we would like to convert. There are some, it's kind of hard to see on here, but existing lines, this is the well. There to the house. And then the existing septic system from the house, which goes back to this field here. What we were proposing to do is connect the new septic system for this. Connect it. While adding a second septic tank here to allow for a siphon system to work properly. You can see the siphon tank up here. It would be adding 2 septic tanks, one at the shop, one at the corner of the pool with a siphon tank, with both of them kind of coming into that siphon tank, as you see, and then the mound back, back here. We show a rough line here too, tapping into the well system for an additional water supply to that building.
Any comments, questions?
The only, you're gonna feed both homes off of the one well.
Correct.
What's the other well on the plan? It says well.
That is an old filled-in well, if you're referring to the one right about here.
It says assumed elevation. or-
Yeah, so we use that as an elevation reference to figure out what the grade was going back behind the pool to the mound. So,
Use that as your benchmark then.
yes,
Okay.
But it's not active.
it's not an active well, no.
And Schenectady County was okay with the well has enough capacity for both homes.
We haven't tested the flow rate, but I don't have any concerns that it wouldn't pass. We've filled that 30,000 gallon pool with the well, no issues.
Adequate parking for all the structures, all the residences.
Say it again?
Is there adequate parking for all the structures?
Yes, there's a parking lot in the front. Paved. Right here, and then there's a wraparound driveways sort of to the edge there. All the way to the back, so from, there and here's all paved parking.
So you just use the parking that was there for the store is gonna be now the
Correct.
occupants parking.
Correct.
How many bedrooms would there be in bedrooms
We're designing it with 1 bedroom
per unit for there's
for that in-law apartment, yes, 1 bedroom. Yes, the house is 4 bedrooms.
the house is 1 bedroom. So 5 total bedrooms.
And where do you guys stand with the septic design?
Design's well underway. We've made very good progress. We've submitted our application with the county. And paid our application fee to request a perk test to be done. Currently, the way it is set up now, there's a lot of water dumping into that area. So we are diverting a lot of that water from the mound area back to the hedgerow back here in the field, where it will naturally drain out to try to get it away from the area. We'd like to have the perk test done.
So if you're doing the mound, what do you need the perks for?
Yes, can you answer that?
Yeah, in Schenectady County, Actually, New York State Health Department, any system, whether it's conventional, raised bed, mound, a lot of different descriptions for the type of system. You must do soil tests. You have to prove at the very least that you got at least 12 inches of usable soil. Because most of Dwaynesburg, you go down 12, 15 inches, you're into clay.
Yeah,
And that's a limiting condition for any type of system. If we had 4 feet of usable soil, we could put conventional trenches.
Yeah.
Under the new standard since '92, they have to be raised because you gotta maintain that 2 foot separation from the maximum high water table, which is in Dwaynesburg is typically 12 inches below the surface. So you have to do soil tests in any event. And as they said, they've made their application. I'm working with them. I'm listed as the engineer for the county. And they will come out and witness soil tests along with me. And that'll justify the type of system that we're designing, but I've done enough in Dwaynesburg. I know that the mound system is the most cost-effective way to go. In terms of use of material and the best use of material. And that's why the siphon, because any kind of mound system must be pressure dosed. So rather than using a pump type system, we use a siphon. That's why the elevations are listed there. We've got to maintain at least a 6 foot elevation difference on grade in order for a siphon to be able to pressure dose the system properly. So that's what we're working on now.
plenty of room there to fix it, yeah, one there, the other, it's.
Okay.
The only.
Yeah, I mean,
On septic approval.
one way or the other, they'll be able to get something to happen there.
Any of the board members have any comments, questions? It's reasonably straightforward, septic is gonna be a dollar item for sure. It's a challenge, maybe $2. And so soil in this area is very, very difficult to deal with, but if you realize that from day one, it's part of the game.
They have more than enough land,
Yeah, have plenty of land.
not a tiny plot, so they
You
got
gotta
plenty of
like
land.
sand sometimes. Yeah, you got it. Okay.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second.
Chairman Harris,
Yes.
Board Member Novak,
Yes.
Chairman Schmidt,
Yes,
Board Member Houghton,
Yes.
Board Member Hoffman,
Yes,
Board Member Walpole,
yes,
So looking at the county recommendation, they recommended approval. They did have an advisory note. Regarding wastewater treatment system and well. I don't know if folks took a look at that.
Mine's cut off.
Mine is cut off as well.
Okay.
I was wondering, I don't think any of us are concerned about the proposal, but we could make it contingent on approval of the county septic design. Understand about that?
Yeah, and testing on the wells. Imagine when they're trying to get to it, they forgot to finish.
Yes.
Yeah.
so doesn't cause you any grief. I mean, that's kind of straightforward.
Yeah.
We would, the special use permit would be conditioned
Fully understood,
on
yeah.
that, which is, I believe, reasonable for me to do. So. Right.
Seeker is.
And seeker is a type 2, so we have no seeker action.
Okay, no secret action.
It's exempt.
So what we would do is make a motion to approve the special use permit contingent upon, we might be going to articulate the concern there.
So contingent, so I make a motion to approve the, is it Baylog?
Yes,
Baylog, special use. With 2 conditions. One is that the well is tested and approved by is it Department of Health, that the right, Second County Department of Health, and that the wastewater treatment system is also approved by the County of Health and for full installation, not just behind full installation. Make that motion.
Vice Chairman Harris,
Yes.
Board Member Walpole,
yeah,
Chairman Schmidt,
Yes.
Board Member Novak,
Yes.
Board Member Houghton,
Yes.
Board Member Hoffman.
yes,
So what we do is you can pick up your special use permit. If they can find me to sign it. Work with Chris will guide you through the process, ultimately you'll be building permits and they'll make sure that you get the right approvals from the health department and stuff. Good luck.
Great, thank
Hopefully
you.
it succeeds for you.
Good, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. The next item on tonight's agenda is a second public hearing, which involves continuation of a public hearing that has been going on since I was 4 years old, I think. That's the Wishy-Wash Sparrow Congus special use permit for accessory parking. Located right on Route 20 here where the Wishy-Wash is. We've got a number of meetings on this, number of concerns. Our town designated engineer can't be here tonight because he recently had surgery. He has just, I think yesterday or the day before, sent comments on the proposal. And we've gone back and forth and back and forth. We haven't heard, we've heard some stuff from DEC and some stuff that the board will add in addition to what DEP had said, which is not much of anything as far as I'm concerned. But Joe, maybe you can go through where we are and then we can start discussing how we're gonna deal with, getting this thing going.
Yeah, I think it's been, at least I've been involved with it for about a year now.
3 years, I think.
We did respond to Doug Cole's comments that we had received about a month ago. And we responded to those a little over a week ago, and then Doug got back to us this last night, I guess it was, with his comments. And reading through it, it seems like he's satisfied with all of our responses, except for two things that he didn't get an answer yet from DEC on. Those two things are whether the addition classifies as redevelopment. And our position is that the addition is going to a spot where it's already paved. So there's no real addition of any runoff from that site because it's just rooftop instead of pavement. But if DEC says we gotta treat it as redevelopment, we can put in a small rain garden down below it to treat any runoff from that site. The other thing with that addition, he mentioned that we never received a copy of a variance that we thought, Sparrow thought he had obtained it a couple of years ago. And if it doesn't exist, then we'll have to go back in and get a variance, see if I can find it. No.
So the side setback variance, is that what? Side setback variance, is that what we're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that just involves the addition.
Yeah.
Okay, and if it would be a condition of approval, we'd like to get approval tonight, that could be a condition of approval that we go back and seek the variance, and that's what we'll have to do. The other issue that he reached out to DEC on is on the bioretention, uphill of the bioretention. He thinks we need a grass filter strip in that location. And we don't read the regulations to require the grass filter strip. We don't think it would serve any useful purpose. So we haven't incorporated that into our design. It could be incorporated, but if we incorporate it, we would likely have to move our bioretention area to the south a little bit. We can incorporate that bioretention area, so those can be accommodated. He didn't really say anything significant about the testing. I know he wanted to do testing. We don't think it is necessary. Again, DEC said that they're the authority on it, and they come back and said that we don't have to do testing of the water or the sediment in the pond, as long as we follow the procedures that I outlined in the sequence. And that mainly is that we draw the water down from the upper pond. Draw it down so that there's sufficient volume in the upper pond to take the water from the lower pond. And we pump all the water from the lower pond to the upper pond, and then it's still considered groundwater discharge with our permit. So we don't have to test the water, we don't have to test the sediment. Then we would install the fourth tank on Spiro's recycling system. So the water, the wastewater from the car wash would go through 4 tanks and then be recycled back to and used as wash water. And it's got filters to it and puts on inside the building for that wash water. And all the wash water would be recycled. There'd be no discharge. We do have to follow DEC's rules and regulations for that closeout. Then they will inspect it. Everything's to their satisfaction. Then he would not have to have a permit, a speedies permit from DEC anymore. That would be eliminated. Okay. When that happens, we can also, and we have the water pumped down, we excavate from the bioretention area. And we put the material from the bioretention area, which is basically a heavy clay, into the pond. We don't excavate anything out of the pond. About 3 feet of clay that will be put on the bottom of the pond and up sides of the pond. So that everything is contained in the pond. Anything that's there is buried right there, doesn't go off site, it's buried. We don't know, again, we don't think it's required because DEC, as the authority, says it's not required. Pond will be gone, there will just be material buried on site. There's no wells within 100 feet of the pond. And the pond won't be utilized except for a dry detention base. It'll only fill up partially when there's a storm, which we diverting water so that there's no more, not no more, but we're reducing the water that's going to the east, and any storm water is basically directed back to this dry detention basin with just a slight outfall to Route 20, very small, a 2-inch pipe. So I know it's up to you as to what you require. We think if you're going to require testing, it's going to delay us. Because I don't know what you want to test for. I don't know how many tests you want. I don't know what the acceptable parameters are for any material that's there. It'll take us at least a month to do any testing, maybe longer, because you got to get a company to do the testing. You got to get out there, take the test, and they got to test the samples and report back to us. So that likely puts us well into November. So we miss the next meeting, we end in December. December, we can't start any work taking ground approval, so it would be well into the spring before any work can be done. We'd like to start work now with an approval, even a conditional approval. We can start the work, but without testing. So, sort of up to you.
So what's the opposition with testing here? Is there, why wouldn't we test?
Why do you need to test?
Well,
There's no evidence of any problems.
Well, I mean,
What evidence is there of any problem?
well, I mean, just the nature of whatever could have ran off into that pond or in that sediment. I mean, we got,
It's not a problem to DEC. The water that goes into that pond has been tested over the years. It's always been satisfactory to DEC. There's never been an issue.
so I think my concern would be, so you're talking about taking the material, basically relocating on site. it's gonna be there, it's gonna be encapsulated, you know.
Being encapsulated in
So,
place.
so I guess my concern is looking forward down the road. Say we have, somebody else owns that property, they wanna do something on that property. Now, when they go to do that, now that they've run into soil that. At that point is, found to be contaminated, now it's somebody else's problem in the future, I think it's prudent. If we're gonna dig up the material, why not test
Picking
it?
it up.
Yeah, he's not proposing to take it.
Oh, is that?
We're not.
Cover it.
We're burying
Cover
it.
it. But I think your concern is still valid.
Well, either way, I mean, so, all right, so at that point, we're encapsulating whatever's there.
Yeah, it's
So-
gonna stay right where it is.
So, which could be fine, if DEC is fine with encapsulating, but I think just knowing what the conditions are, and that way it's documented. So that way somebody else down the road isn't adding an unforeseen condition they hadn't have to deal with as they're redeveloping that property.
When Spiro bought the property, he had a phase 1 environmental assessment done. And it came back clean. And they did their due diligence on testing the site and property. And there was no issues with contamination.
Did they test?
Phase one doesn't pass.
They didn't test, I don't believe they tested it.
No, phase one
But
doesn't.
they checked all the records and everything else and it came back clean.
My question to the board is if we test. And depending what the results are, say there is something that comes up, what would our actions be? And what would happen? I mean, there's lots of properties. New York State, all over the country that we know are contaminated, and I don't believe, is there a requirement to mitigate?
I did talk off the record, I didn't talk to
What's that?
anybody officially. But the response I got from another environmental engineer was that what they do is they encapsulate it and leave it in place.
Which, I'm not saying I'm not, like, I'm not personally okay with that, I think just knowing, identifying if there's something there, that way. Like I said, I'm just worried about, now's our time before we do bury it. To identify if there is something that's there, just so that way it doesn't become somebody else's
Again,
heading down the road.
I don't know what you even want to test for, what test,
We would test for semi-volatiles, heavy metals.
you gotta give me a list of what you
Yeah.
need and what's acceptable. I can't just-
Yeah, we can actually identify the parameters for analytical.
Right, but there's no evidence that there's anything going off site. So.
There's no
I don't think
evidence.
There's any justification for it.
My concern is, it's like when the Fort Edward Dam was removed by DEC, there was no evidence there were PCBs in the sediments behind that dam. Now, $1 billion later, the Hudson River is contaminated, no one knew, and I think that's the board's concern, we don't know. We know that pond has received wash water in a facility that was never had an attendant. That people degreased engines, I personally have degreased a lot of stuff up there in the 1980s. And we just don't know, and I think Mike's point is well made, is that we should at least have some knowledge base of what we're covering up and burying. So that in the future, it doesn't become a legacy site and then somebody else is stuck with it, or the town gets stuck with it, if God forbid the place went, financially bankrupt. Then the town's got a piece of property that's really not marketable.
Just to be clear, the town does not foreclose on properties, that's the county.
Okay, so that, well, the public. But I think it's important that we at least characterize what's there. It's not a difficult thing. Once the
No,
pond
it's
is
a time consuming process.
Well, you've been here 3 years now.
I know, but you wanna get, the neighbors wanna get something done there, and I'm saying it can get done this fall. But if we require testing, it's not gonna get done in the
No, I think
next spring at all.
Well, when it
If it does.
there's something to say that we could take samples,
Take a sample.
proceed with work, and while the work is proceeding. It's just better just taking the samples and know what's there.
You gotta dewater it. Sorry,
Oh, yeah.
Once it's dewatered, you'll get to the point where
Right.
we can actually assess how much sediment is in there. I don't know if there's 2 inches of muck in there or 10 feet. No one knows. I know, you know how much water is in there? I mean, it's broke down.
We did.
Yeah.
We went down to the depth, and we'll be filling about 3 feet on the bottom and then going up on the
Yeah,
sides.
so how much, Mike's point is, how much sediment is in there and what?
They hit bottom, okay, with a pole, they hit bottom, they were out in the boat and
Yeah, so if we took some samples, had it, this catalog for the future, I think it's a responsibility. The board has to make a decision under secret that this thing has no environmental impact. We don't know.
Well,
It's a big unknown.
Then it's okay.
Now, DEC has basically said, they really changed their mind on this. They said it's the wastewater treatment pond. It's not a wastewater treatment pond. Now they're saying it's just a pond. Which I don't know how they can do that under the process. It's actually challenging.
The board said they're the experts and we waited for their decision.
Yeah, well, the board has a role in this whole process. And it's my recommendation that at least we have some characterization information on that for the future. If EPA, EPA identified wishy-wash on their map 2 years ago as one of the potential sources of PFOA and PFAS. There was a map that they had, it was a big initiative in EPA. So for us to just walk away from this and not know anything about it, I think it's irresponsible on the board's part itself, but it doesn't hurt to test. It would be the best news in the world if we tested that and everything came out great. But it's not gonna take months to do this. Once you dewater it, I can do it myself. I took thousands of samples from DEC. Matt does it, all these guys do this stuff,
Yeah, but we still gotta get a testing lab lined up to do it.
That's,
I think
And you gotta de-water, this takes.
you gotta dewater it, so there's certain construction practices that have to happen. It doesn't have to be the wedge that stops everything.
And I think that goes to my question, Jeff, is after the testing, what would the responsibilities be or what would be required? And if there's nothing really that requires the mitigation or removal, then you could just, couldn't we make it a condition of the approval that at the time they dewater for the capping of it, that the testing happens? And the tests are brought to or submitted to the town. But it really doesn't hold up any.
they proceed
Yeah.
with the cap. Proceed with the cap.
It doesn't have to stop the rush. It just has, I just think it's a responsible. thing
I just didn't know
to take care of
the question of if something comes up, are we then mitigated to or required to?
It depends on what you find, Matt. That's what it depends
Yeah,
on.
yeah, if we found it, but I was at sites years ago and it was one on Turnbull Road. And I think everybody knows, I was with DEC, there was a pit on the property that was owned by a woman named Helen Leach. And her husband worked for the chemical company, and he was charged every once in a while to take a barrel of chemicals home, and there was a big pit on there. Not that I won't name the company, but we investigated it, there was no obvious problem, but there was a lot of intermediate resins and thermoset resins and varnishes buried out back. And it was cleaned up under a stipulation. But there was no obvious problem. Yeah, I did another job in East Greenbush where the guy was washing out barrels, Stronsky Cooperage, it's called, washed clean barrels out. We went over there one day, took samples, the material in the thing of hazardous waste turned out to be a huge groundwater contamination. So the fact that there's no obvious problem means nothing to me. You have to at least get some information or data to say, the board can be comfortable saying, hey, we did our due diligence, we looked into this. Fine, if the stuff comes out clean, I'd be happier to take him into a And but if it comes out for some crazy reason, if it came out that 15 years ago, somebody dumped 55 gallons of thiamine in that pit, which could have happened. People used to change their oil over catch basins years ago. If that's the case, then we got something to deal with, whether we excavate 2 feet of muck out of that place and send it to a landfill. There's gotta be some decision other than just turning a blind eye to it, saying, nah, we don't see a problem. I think it's a responsible thing to do, and it's not a big deal. It's all done. I have my career in this stuff.
If we. John Hitchcock with EPD, if we were not to use this pond and dewater it, that soil would stay in place and we would never test it. So what's the point of testing it if we dewater it? What's the justification? I think that's what we're trying to get out of the board.
I think because you're kind of burying the problem, and before you bury the problem, we would like to know if there is a problem.
Yes. I mean, if there's no problem, it's fantastic news. I mean, everybody in the board will say, this is good. I think the neighbors will be saying, all right, DEC did a good job, or the board did a good job. DEC, me dropped the ball completely. This thing should be.
You were in touch with them, just like we were.
Believe me, I've been in touch with them. The ring their necks. This way.
Teresa, do you have something you wanted to say a minute ago?
Well, I think what we should do is we should continue public, I mean, I think we should allow people to speak.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because it's a public hearing, and then I think the board should discuss what the board wants to do going forward in terms of what conditions will be imposed and how we'll deal with seeker. And, you know, the board has not instructed me to draft a resolution yet, and so I don't have one with me
Yeah.
tonight,
Here's what?
but I would. Don't make me hurt you. But I would, I do think it'd be very helpful to list out the conditions so that we can make progress.
So with that, anybody from public? It's not you.
Yeah. Oh, I'm not talking.
I'll keep it, now, we haven't turned it a minute. Anybody from the public have any comments, questions? Yeah, Mr. Renner.
I would just add that being someone who lives right next door, it would give me tremendous peace of mind to know that there's nothing there. It would be the happiest thing I could hear, just that we tested it, there's nothing there. Like we said, they've been dumping stuff in that pond for 40+ years. It's an unmonitored, people come and go, there's no attendant on site to see what actually goes on there, and that was prior to the new one.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying he's not, I'm sure he keeps an eye on what's going on there now, but prior to that, there was never any attendant there, and I've lived there for 30+ years, and I saw a lot of stuff going in and out of that car wash that amazed me that they were just washing that stuff into that stuff. So just like I said, peace of mind for me would be knowing that there's nothing going on in the pond. Because everybody in the area has wells. There's no public water system, they're all private wells, private septic systems. Yeah, I think it would just give all the neighbors peace of mind.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah, go ahead, Lance.
Yeah, well, I'm just down the road from that, on the other side of the Cerro, you know, and I own all of the 400 feet along Route 20 there. And from what I'm understanding, that the 2-inch pipe you got coming out, that's gonna drain from the site there, is gonna ultimately wind up in the Route 20 ditch, yeah. So, I hear the same thing, knowing that what's being discharged, I mean, anything,
But it's not.
well, that's stormwater.
That's stormwater.
Yes, but there's a lot of things in that stormwater.
So that doesn't, okay, so the pond that you're talking about filling, where's the overflow from that pond gonna go? There is no overflow?
Now, not now, there's no overflow.
What happens during torrential rainfall? Doesn't, it must have an outflow. doesn't
It doesn't have an outfall, it does if you get a real heavy rainstorm down the driveway ditch.
Yeah.
But then Route 20 floods too, so.
Well, I know, well, once again, I'd be of the same opinion, that it'd be nice to know that there's nothing there, that this is not a, what do they call it, a greenfield, no, what do they call it, it's a site. that has everything. Yeah, I have an issue with because of, with College City behind me, and all the stuff they were putting in with their landfill back there, which we only just discovered that there really was, landfills were outlawed 20 years ago. But with the rain runoff that was coming, we were getting inundated with water too. And we were concerned about what was being put in there in terms of, I had DEC up there and they did declare that it met the DEC requirements, you know, for a landfill, even though Waynesville doesn't allow it. So I have my water tested, both surface water, which is my pond, because everything drains to that, as well as my groundwater, my well water too. Fortunately, as I told, from College City, I told them, I said, the water came back clean. So I'm happy, but I did do the testing just to make sure what I was drinking.
What landfill is that?
It's
Well, it's a regrading of the whole field behind him. He's raised the grade up about 14 feet from what it was back when Sajeski owned it.
College City.
College City Auctions.
they took all this.
Yeah, they've been making
It's
something
not
back there.
landfill.
They've been leveling the land. They're getting rid of the slope. Yeah. They've been having everything from broken up blacktop to aluminum siding to timbers and everything else was buried under there, but anyway. Yeah, but it has changed the natural flow of water, surface water on the land, so that's why I mind just to be sure.
Any other comments, questions? Public, I do have one question that. Future, the current design plan, implementation, is any water, planned to flow off of the parking area to the east?
Not off of the parking area, no,
Okay.
but no. But from the downstream.
No, Mike, look right here, these are his pre and post tributary areas. So you can see this area right here ends at the top corner of the proposed parking area, and you've got this one. So all of that is gonna get treated by the biofilter. This area that is pre, there's no change, that's still gonna continue as it was.
So I get the land to the north, I think is what you're saying. If that comes down towards the parking area, can any of that diverted to the east?
Diverted to the east and then to the south to that corner.
And then come back to the west and keep
No,
going?
you can go to the east to the creek.
So this,
So this is the pre.
Yep.
So this triangle right here is to the north, and this area is to the north.
Yep.
And then when you look at the post, this area is still getting treated by the biofilter. This area is not getting treated, but it's also not changing.
it's not changing.
There's no increase in impervious, there's no.
Yeah. Makes sense, okay. So there shouldn't be a change, an increase in water to those properties.
And there'll be a reduction in this, based on the biofilter and the redesign to root flow.
Thank you, thank you.
If the board at one point made a, kind of a commitment to the children, and that trench wouldn't be used. If there doesn't come any water off site, they were worried about, catastrophic flooding of their property, so that's not gonna happen under this design, so we're.
This design will capture all the water coming off of that
Okay,
gravel area and direct it back to the west.
Yep.
Right,
Correct.
right, but there's still land to the south of us that'll continue to drain to Mr. Wren's property because we're not developing it, right? He owns it.
Right.
So he will get runoff from that area.
from area that you own.
Yeah,
So,
he owns it, yeah.
So,
Go ahead.
I've got a couple things, the outstanding design issues with the stormwater.
Are you guys done with the public hearing portion of this?
Is there anybody from the public that would like to make any other statements?
Sounds like we are.
Okay, now, if you close the public hearing, you have to make a decision at the next meeting, just to be clear. Okay, so you should continue the public hearing if you're not sure you're gonna be ready to make a decision at the next meeting.
We could close it at the next meeting and make a decision.
Oh, of course, absolutely.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think because Doug is still waiting for information from DEC.
DEC.
And that's what I wanted I want those two outstanding stormwater comments, the grass filter strip and the redevelopment. I don't know why DEC is taking so long, but that is the quintessential definition of redevelopment. You have impervious area, you're disturbing it to put new impervious area, the building, that is the exact definition of redevelopment. And
What's the question there?
Joe doesn't believe they have to treat it because under the redevelopment, you have to treat 25% of the WQV under the redevelopment clause of the stormwater
Okay.
code. I can't believe DEC hasn't responded because it's to me, it's as plain as day. So
What
I
about the other issue? What about the grassy?
the filter strip, the way I read it, I believe in this application, the filter strip would be required. It's a pre-treatment, so you're preserving the maintenance of the biofilter. So that grass filter strip is helping strip out some of the contaminants, so you don't have to do the maintenance of replacing the plants in the biofilter, the mulch, the media, so you don't have to dig it out every 2 years. It's trying to make it a longer lasting practice with less and lower maintenance costs.
Okay, so the question we have for the applicant is twofold. Joe, if you agree to do the rain garden to get rid of the issue of the redevelopment, that solves one problem. As far as the filter strip, the reason why I asked about that specifically is I recall reading something that said if they have to put in a grass filter strip, it has to move closer to the Wren property. Is that the response that you
That's the
gave?
response we gave.
Is there another option for putting the grass filter strip in that would not result in it moving closer to the property next door?
I would say yes, why can't you move it north? You lose some of the parking area, but,
Okay.
you know.
What are we
there's-
talking about?
How wide is
Yeah.
it? Is it like 10 feet, 20 feet? What is it?
It's based, I believe it's based on the grade and velocities and flows and everything else. It's not 10 feet or 15 feet. You have to do a calculation to determine that length of the filter strip.
Is it width or length?
The traveling length of the water, so it's coming off the gravel. It would be going through that filter strip as a pre-treatment practice before it gets to the biofilter. So it's a calculation that the engineer, the applicant would have to do to determine how wide or how deep that filter strip is.
So have you looked at how big it would have to be if you designed it? I mean, have you designed it
We
at
have
all?
not
Bill?
designed it, no.
Okay.
Our position has always been that it's not necessary because of the wording in the DEC's manual.
And we do provide the pre-treatment required through the stone diaphragm.
Right, we got a stone diaphragm that does the same thing.
Is that an interchangeable practice?
But no way, no, it's not. My opinion, I've talked to Doug about it, I've looked at it.
So the thing that worries me about that is that changes what it looks like, what the site plan is, and you know, this is nothing to do with Joe, so this is not a criticism of you, Joe, whatsoever. But when this was being built before, DEC came out in the middle of it and changed things, and that just kind of put us in a bigger hole. So that seems to me something we really need to pin down in terms of getting an answer on that. But we could still make it a condition. The problem is we would have to have a countervailing condition about not going any closer to the property boundary to the south. I think it's the south, you know.
Yes.
Okay, and so that, to me, that's the biggest open issue.
Yeah, I would agree that those two stormwater design things, I would feel more comfortable having a definitive. They're incorporated into the plan or they're eliminated from the plan before we did an approval.
Right, but the rain garden is, you know, that's not a big deal. I mean, either it has to be there or it doesn't. If it does, it can be there. It doesn't affect anybody else. You know what I'm saying? So,
I mean, there's still the issue of if there's a variant.
Yeah,
or
it's
not.
not- it was a
I
variant.
mean, so the whole third bay is still in question on if they receive a variance or not.
That wouldn't go ahead until we got the variance. If we need a variance, we have to
Right.
get it before that could be moved ahead.
but you can, because we could do this in two parts. Is the tank at the location of is the fourth tank at the location of where is that, Joe? Where's the
Fourth
third?
thing is right in line with the other three tanks, near the
Okay.
pond, on the pond
So
side.
it's on the pond side,
Okay.
so.
All right,
So is any of the change in the way this system works dependent on the fourth bay? Or that part of the building?
That doesn't affect anything.
Okay, so that's completely,
That's separate.
okay,
Okay, so they could come back for that, you know. What happens, Joe, is we can't, the planning board lacks approval. I don't know, let me try this, it's been a long day. The planning board lacks authority to grant approval to something if it requires a variance, at least that piece of it.
Right.
Okay, it's not, the only time we don't have that problem if it relates to a fence or something that's not critical, you know, to the overall project. So what we could do is indicate that we're not approving that until the ZBA makes a decision.
Right.
And then you could come back and we can just approve that day. Is the fourth, whatever it is, fourth or third bay on your plans right now?
Oh,
or
yeah,
not?
everything is shown on the plan so that we're
Okay.
not segmenting anything. It's
No,
all-
I appreciate that.
It's all there, but yeah, the fourth tank can be put in without any impact to that addition, or the additional bay. Or the, if we have to put a rain garden.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the planning board has a good reason for, you know, proceeding to approve everything related to the parking area and the change in the facility. And then once the ZBA makes a decision, they can come back and then you can approve the fourth bay. Does anybody have any problem with that?
I think I would want the design question answered
Oh,
before I
no,
approve.
oh, absolutely, I
Just
hear
that
that.
piece
Yeah.
of the variance.
Yeah, just the piece with the variance, just to try to move things along, cause that, so. What you want, Matt, is DEC to answer those two questions before you make a decision and.
Or the applicant just choose to address
Granted,
his comment and just move forward with the design of them.
no, I agree, but in any event, we still will need the design of the biofilter because that has an impact on. But. So I'm hearing that you want to continue the public hearing and then. Discuss just amongst ourselves what the conditions would be. So that you're in a position to have a resolution for the next meeting. And once all these issues are wrapped up, you know, you're not making a decision tonight, I'm just trying to figure out where you want to go. Does that make sense to everybody here? Yeah.
Yes, as long as we hear from DEC, I mean, that filter strip is,
Right.
you know, that's.
And
that's like-
so who are we waiting to hear from at DEC? Who's the human?
They went to Jamie, Doug asked Jamie Malcolm, you know, I would suggest, especially since we haven't heard from him, just asking Dave Jasper.
We asked
I
Dave
talked to Dave
Jasper.
Casper today, he said, talk to Jamie.
Go around and around.
Be with the only parking authority.
Here in Utah,
Utah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I sent both, well, I didn't send Jamie an email because Doug had already sent.
I think Carrie has offloaded this to Devin. So,
Well, it says to me that we won't get an answer if Matt, maybe you could call Devin. And that way we could get an answer. Okay,
I can see if I can,
okay. I knew Dave wasn't gonna answer that. Excuse me.
Teresa, can I just say something?
Yeah,
Really
sure.
quick, I guess. So I remember going in front of the board for the variance,
Okay,
and when we did that, basically they tabled it until you guys made a decision on what was going on with the parking area,
okay,
because we couldn't move forward with that until all of this was done. So I did review the minutes for that.
okay.
It is there,
Okay.
that it's been tabled, the variance. so.
Okay, so you can get on the ZBA's agenda for the next meeting to seek that side area variance.
Can I do that without your approval though on this part? Because that's what they tabled this until you guys approve that,
Right,
so.
why don't you have, I will talk to the chair of the ZBA. Okay, all right, so I'll talk to Nelson. But there's no reason why that couldn't proceed at this point. So,
So now that location and the design is relatively, no.
yeah, no, that, and it's completely unrelated to the parking.
Yeah.
And frankly, the change in operation of the facility is just a positive thing, because it'll no longer result in a, whatever DEC wants to call it, a discharge to a surface pond. So,
I saw that there was some,
Oh, yeah, I was just thinking to Teresa's point regarding the public hearing, I think we could make a motion now to essentially continue the public hearing until the next meeting. That could be one motion, and we can continue our discussion.
I think that's a good
So
idea.
I will make that motion to continue the public hearing to the next meeting, which is November 16th.
I can second that,
Board Member Novak,
Yes.
Board Member Houghton,
yes.
Chairman Schmidt,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Harris.
Yes.
Board Member Hoffman,
Yes,
Board Member Walpole.
Yes.
I just had some questions for clarity. Are we entertaining the food truck as part of this or not? Cause I feel like that's been talked about many different times during the process, and like, we don't really have a lot of the detail, you know, hours of operation, what it's gonna look like, parking spots, that sort of thing. So I just wanna be clear, if that's part of this, then I think there needs to be some additional discussion on that. If it's not, and they're gonna come back, you know, in the future, then that's good.
The food truck is a couple years down the road, but again, we put it on there so that everything's there.
I was just looking through all the old stuff. Is that even on the original application?
It was.
Yeah.
It was,
Yeah, it
okay.
was. Yeah, it was something that was certainly discussed. So do you plan on doing that within the next year or two?
It all depends on finances really at this point. You know, we wanna just try to finish this project. And move on and do what we have to do, and we don't know. If that's gonna be, you know, it could be 10 years down the road, I don't know.
Yeah, I think in this, you know, to try to keep the project moving at the rapid pace that we're moving at, I think, and our town designated engineer had suggested that we kind of table the idea of the food truck and not interpret that as a way of segmenting the project under secret, that you would have an opportunity to come back if it's 2 or 3 years, a year from now, and say, now we want to add this, because that's another topic of discussion that we haven't really had a lot of discussion on. And, you know, hours of
And that's
operation.
fine with me, I mean, I just don't wanna come back and go through like another year of trying to get that.
That should be more straightforward. Once you're established, then, you know, this has been a nightmare. 3 years of, you know, board members were beaten to death by this project. But, you know, the food truck would be, if you got an established working business, your model is working good, there's not any issues. You know, then the addition of that, would be straightforward.
I would also say that because we don't know where that biofilter is gonna be, in the filter strip. It's hard to predict turning movements and where it's gonna be and parking and everything else, so. I think it would help to remove that and simplify the plan a little bit, and, you know, once they. Decide if they're gonna move forward with that business, once you have the established parameters of the parking lot, you know.
I mean, there's projected increased use with the additional bay and all, so like, I don't know how we envision what that looks like once it's up and running with what's there now, without kind of really diving back in for a food truck. So,
Do we want to take a stab at listing out some conditions and direction for the applicant? So I think the first one is, whatever we do at the next meeting, and hopefully we can get this through. First, we do a condition on the variance from the ZBA. I think a condition will be that at this point in time, we're not approving the food truck proposal. With regard to DEC and the approvals, I think we have two options. Either they get direction from DEC and a new site plan, or they provide a filter strip redesign that's agreeable to our town engineer. And they provide the rain gardens, which I think would address the other thing. So those are two options for the applicant to consider, condition the permit for them. I think those were the primary ones that I had.
Testing.
Testing, that's the biggie. So we want sampling and testing, and we need to give some thought to where we want the samples taken, how many samples, and what testing we want done.
This is define?
Yeah, I would lean on Jeff or some, that's not my wheelhouse.
We're talking, first let's talk about what we want tested. Is it the bottom sediment in the
Yeah.
lower pond?
Lower pond, a composite sample, or sample.
And does the group agree that after they pull the samples, they can continue with encapsulating it? Without waiting for the results, or do we need to move on to results first?
Well, take long to get the results.
Yeah, I think there's enough other work that's gonna happen anyways, that you should have the results back before you even think we're gonna set that. Before.
Okay, so what do we want them to sample for? You said
I would suggest we do the deep metals. We do semi-volatiles, 8260 and 8270 and the test that we do.
okay,
And the PF.
lower.
AS. Serious.
Okay,
Can I ask the
semi-volatile, let me just get this, sorry, semi-volatiles, what?
Volatiles and semi-volatile, heavy metals.
Or those two numbers, 870.
8260
and
8270.
Okay,
And then we have to do something on the PFAS. I don't know what the testing medium is for that. That's something that you definitely have to get.
there's a good testing. that
It's
needs to be
there, and it has to be done by an ELAB certified lab. We should probably get a sampling and analysis plan from an independent independent.
We use Pace Analytical over there to do all of our testing.
But
And
the
I
pond would
already-
actually probably, I think would be best if the pond would be watered.
Yeah.
Then you
Well,
can get
yeah.
in there and take some core samples. I don't know how deep that sediment is, if there's 2 inches or 2 feet,
It seemed to be a lot, but
You never know. You never know. And that's the whole thing, so just the document was there, so. And then, probably do, we don't need to do a lot of samples, we need more than one sample, we should need double samples, maybe.
Well, the pond is, remember, the pond is not very big,
Yeah,
okay,
we could do a composite sample, we could take, rid of cores and then composite them into a single tail, and then take a couple samples out of that, that would be probably.
okay, so you would expect that it would be uniform?
Yeah,
Okay,
there might be some, variation with depth, but depending if the sediment was 10 feet deep, you might want to do, but we don't know, I would think if we did core samples and homogenized the cores and into a tail and then took some reference samples, that would be a representative sample, that's what I think we're looking.
okay, so then I'm gonna suggest that we have Doug make a specification on what the sampling is gonna be.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, I talked to him about that, a bit, and
okay,
he's capable of handling that.
all right. And then the other question is just, so the last time this got constructed, it didn't work out. So do we want to have a condition that there be a pre-construction meeting and some supervision? Cause
Yeah.
and Chris, you have to tell us, are you up for that? Do you want help from Doug on that? What's your thought?
I mean, I'd be up for it, but I mean, it's really up to you guys how much you want Doug there. I'm not opposed to that either, but
Maybe Doug could be available in the event Chris wasn't, in case something comes up, because I think we do need a presence out there. I think it's in everyone's best interest.
Yeah. So, okay, so, well, let's at least say pre-construction with contractors.
And DEC?
No.
No. Yeah, but that's what it is.
Right,
Teresa, I have one thing here. Looking at the east side of the parking lot, you're calling for an existing stone berm to remain, and it only goes up probably 3/4 of the parking lot. I think we should just extend that to the top of the parking lot, all the way to the north, just to make sure that no runoff, it settles or anything else and continues to the east.
Not quite sure how to look at that.
If you throw the plan up on the,
I think we're talking about. It's this. This.
yeah, exactly.
Extend.
Yep. Just all the way up to the top, just so we don't, for any reason, if it settles or anything, nothing can get up there. It all goes down in the biofilter. And then we did get the letter, Teresa, as part of the public comment that had some questions. I think the applicant needs to answer those.
Which.
It was the letter from Pat, regarding,
Okay. Yeah, why don't we just go through those? They should be in the packet, right?
yeah, that letter came a week ago, is this?
Have a copy of your letter with you?
I submitted it to.
Yes.
The first one's about 24/7 operation.
Yeah, I do.
You wanna read the question out,
Sure.
so Joe can address it?
Prior to the current owner, the car wash is not a 24/7 operation. The previous owner turned the lights off and closed at 10 PM every night. There are currently no businesses in town that operate 24/7. With a special use variance of change of use permit obtained to operate a car wash on a 24/7 basis.
Well, I think it's pretty clear, it's always been unmanned, so. I don't really know how one would say that it wasn't operated whenever anybody dropped by to use it. Yeah, I don't.
It was always been 24 hours, it's just that the previous owners never had lights there. So that's why nobody came and walked at night.
So what, I guess Teresa, since we're issuing the special use permit for this, would that have to be a condition of that use permit?
Well, it has a special use permit now, it is an operating facility now. So you could impose a requirement, but it would not have been imposed previously. Okay.
Well, yeah, in that regard, if you could, what percentage of the revenue for the facility would be acquired between?
I'm Jeff, that's an improper question, we don't
Okay,
wanna
I'm
ask
just trying to
that.
figure out if is it worth, okay. Is it a proper question? I don't- yes.
Yeah, I mean,
So I think the reference to excessive lighting seems to be as well, so maybe that's how we could address this.
Okay.
It's the reference to a section of
13.1.
But we, as part of seeker, if lights are on 24/7,
you have absolute authority, because you're approving a revised site plan as part of this. So you can certainly direct that lighting be downward, just like you did with the grocery
Hannaford,
store,
right.
yeah, just like with Hannaford.
but could we put limits on it? To say it's off at 10 or 11 or something like that.
Well, we certainly already said that with respect to the music. But for instance, the grocery store doesn't have no lights after a certain point. They have further reduced them. So, yeah, so you would have, like if you had 10 wall packs, turn off 5, that kind of stuff. So, I mean, I think, Joe, you're familiar with what they're concerned about. There's dark sky lighting that you can put out.
Yeah, I don't know the lighting that's there right now, so I'd have to get into that and review if it's fair.
Yeah, why don't you do that? See what you can do to knock down the lighting. Otherwise, the only option the town has is to direct it and go dark at a certain point. You know, and that doesn't seem like, you know. It seems like the lighting is a better solution.
Yeah, and I think the goal would be to prevent light
Spillage,
trespass
spillage onto the neighboring
glare,
properties.
and glow, so.
But I would even think that we maybe, you know, have a lighting plan up till 10 and then maybe a lighting plan after 10 that's reduced again.
But still provides for some security.
Yes,
And the letter specifically talks about flashing neon lights, and maybe that's an easy one to turn off, I think. In addition to the other considerations.
There shouldn't be any flashing lights. I mean, I'm saying, you can say no flashing lights.
And then the last one was the current sign is non-compliant with the town sign ordinance, section 13.2, 13.3, and 13.7.
That's a question for Chris.
So, I think what's in question, so I went down and measured it. The sign, so that there's actually, technically, there's two signs there, right? So if it was just one of those signs, it would be compliant. The second sign is actually a banner. It's not really a sign, I mean, I don't know. So for me, it was a weird one because it was no different than the banners that were hanging up during the school board election, right? It's not really a sign, it's a vinyl banner. So if they took that down and it's just the left-hand side, it's compliant as far as the sign size.
So you're saying the permanent sign complies?
Complies, right,
Okay,
according to the commercial, but there's actually a banner next to it. You understand, like a vinyl banner,
you mean the
What is-
blade-like sign with the,
But it's temporary.
like a sign on it that you have on the Little League field fences, the vinyl sign.
Or like on the front
eyelets.
stewards when they're doing.
Okay.
You know
oh.
what I mean, it's like a banner sign, kind of,
Does,
it's actually next to it, so there's two signs.
does our ordinance, I apologize, does our sign ordinance address
Banners.
temporary versus permanent signs?
I didn't find anything in it, so.
so
It's
is
technically
is the
hanging on the
temporary
sign.
sign technically a violation then, if it's not addressed in the code?
Right.
How we would assign sign.
Well, the thing I thought about is, technically, I think I wanted to talk to you guys about it, because I think it might be in violation, because it's hanging on the sign, so.
It's a patch and urban sign.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Just remove, if we remove it and have the one sign, then it should be in compliance.
Is the sign that's there now currently lit?
It's not. And we don't really have a sign. It's just basically a sign board that you put letters on. And that's it. The other part of the sign is just saying the business itself, which is the vinyl, which says Ultimate Wishy Wash. So the board itself is just a signboard that you can put, you know, special, you know, detailing or that gets changed. There's no actual sign that says our business. So that's why we put the vinyl side or vinyl sign next to it. So that way we could show that that's our business and, you know, use the signboard as advertising. And that's been there like that since we bought it, and we've owned it for, you know, 10 years.
In terms of any disturbance in the neighborhood, it's the sign is the. It's the,
Yeah,
Very minimal.
the light and the music.
yeah, I mean, yeah, I personally, I mean. I guess if we're restricted and trying to stick to some ordinance, then yeah, but
Yeah, it's like.
What if the
One on the right.
vinyl sign, could it be attached to the building somehow?
We do have a sign that's attached to the building. I do pull up, but it's nothing that's visible from the road really, because, you know, maybe once the pond area gets cleaned up and we get rid of the cattails and stuff like that, you might be able to see that, but that's kind of faded. We'd like to change that, but I mean, I don't know, we've been there 10 years, we've never had a problem with anybody complaining about music, lighting, or the sign.
Well, I'm sorry, certainly not about the sign. I haven't heard any complaints about the sign, but the music and the lighting, there have been complaints about that.
So how come it's just now that we hear about it instead of?
No,
In the original application, there was comments separated on it.
yeah, that's why we put conditions on the original approval, so they'll just be the same conditions that we had before about light stop, or excuse me, noise stopping after a certain.
I think it was 9 o'clock.
So you're gonna carry those conditions forward.
Yeah, yeah.
And Mr. Red had a comment question.
Yeah, the reason I brought that up is I think it's in fairness to other businesses that have to comply with the sign. And the sign was a small sign, it was expanded after it was purchased. So it was not there before.
What
This
sign?
was added on, the sign, I watched him do it.
What, I don't understand what you're talking about.
There's a main sign and then there was an addition to the
We
sign.
never added on, all we did was we
Okay.
framed it out and made it more sturdy,
Okay,
that sign, we never added to it.
my point is, the town has an ordinance, signs can only be so big. And there's a reason for that, and it's not fair to the other businesses on the road. So right now, we're saying, okay, all the businesses on Route 20, you can just make your signs as big as you want, and nothing's gonna happen, the reason the ordinances are there. And they're for safety reasons and for other reasons, when you're pulling out of there, the sign is bigger, you can't always see what's going on up the road. I mean, I think what you enforce in one business, you have to enforce the same for all of them. And that's why I brought it up, it's just not fair to the other businesses, and if you look at the sign, there's a continuous cover over both. So it's not like it's just kind of attached to it, it's a permanent structure. And that's why I brought it up, it's just not fair to the other businesses, when I've talked to some of those other businesses, and said, well, and they said, no, we were told we could only make our signs this big.
So for the sign, Chris, you're gonna have to make a determination, because that's not up to the planning board. They haven't applied to us for a change to the existing signs. So not clear to me that's even before us at present. So, make a determination and then we'll have to figure it out from there. But as far as the music, we had already had a condition, so.
So you're gonna carry over the conditions from the last
Yeah,
time?
yeah.
Do you think it's worth having a condition like we had, as Mr. Surf, that we were talking about earlier, with a decibel level at receptors?
I think just turning it off after a certain hour, I mean,
Well, there already is,
70 dBA.
Yeah, 7, yeah, I
It's
mean,
in the.
Okay, so then we don't have to condition anything, it's already in code.
I can
Yeah.
mention it in there, I can't hurt, but it is already in there as a
Okay,
performance.
but that doesn't have anything to do with the time.
No,
But there is already,
so I just,
but yeah, that. And I think we went through the same considerations with signage there.
Yep.
So,
okay. And I forget where we stood though on the plantings. Some of them have died, some of them, have they been replaced?
Haven't been replaced.
Okay. Because the plan doesn't show which ones have died and which ones are good.
No, just
Just as long as at the end state, they're all.
Well, I think
they're
there was a
replaced.
question too, the plants at 6 foot and some of them were short, they didn't meet the requirements.
Yeah, we have the same conditions that we had before. And we can make it specific with respect to the height and replacement of the dead trees. And then there was a question about a fence, I think, because the trees were not particularly successful at blocking. We did the fence.
Yeah, and I believe that fence now is on top of the Jersey barriers, right?
Okay. So do they need to get a variance on the fence while they're there? How tall is the fence?
Count from where to where.
3 feet, I think.
The 6 foot on top of the.
Yeah.
Jersey barrier.
Count from
No,
the
so they're
ground
around
to the
4
top
foot.
of the Jersey barrier.
So the barrier is 4 foot?
No, barriers 2 foot and the fence is 4 foot.
So it's a 6 foot high fence.
Yeah. Okay, that's fine. If you have to go back, I just want you to have to go back once.
Yeah,
So, okay. If that's, is that what the dimensions show on the plan?
It is.
Okay.
It's on top of a mound, but I believe the way the fence rule states, it's from grade
It was offensive. Is it safe?
6 foot.
It's all offensive.
So we're good. All right, so that's on there. We'll just say it in the conditions too. There's no harm in that. Any other conditions in terms of monitoring stormwater subsequent to make sure the system is working?
Those are all requirements of the SWIP already and the DEC regulations, so. I think it would be redundant if we did that.
Okay, so, and we have a SWIP and we will have an NOI this time, we won't have any of that, so. And this isn't the begin, if you think of other things before the next meeting, just tell me.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm wondering if the amount of conditions, something to think about, for them to come back. For approval in a year, 2 years, just give them money.
What do we do with CERT? Does anybody remember?
you have to every year.
Maybe we can look at that.
Anything else, Jeff?
It's good.
So we would, best case scenarios, hopefully we can approve this next meeting, next month. In the meantime, Joe, as fall is coming here, we had talked about starting to put the temporary sediment basin in where the biofilter is. So to prevent any flooding, onto Pat's property and. That is considered a temporary erosion sediment control device, which would be allowed to be constructed. I think that would be a good use of time and resources to start that excavation, to put that in. It'll protect the neighboring properties and it'll help them move forward in a short construction season if we're not even approving it until November 16th. That excavation is gonna have to happen no matter what, to build the biofilter.
I think the idea was that has them showed us with the pond. So they would just go in the spring.
Is that
material that they're digging out for the biofilter.
Well, it would just be stockpiled somewhere temporarily until the pond break happens.
You don't usually want to handle materials twice.
University excavator work.
That's.
I watch them do it all day long. No, ideally, no. You wanna
In
get-
an ideal world, yes. I just didn't know. In my mind, it is a protection, that could happen. We know we've had significant flooding to the neighboring property,
But also without the drainage line there, it just filled up. It's more where to go.
correct.
The trench struggle is a big issue that now just for.
I don't know. What's everyone's thoughts?
This is your area.
Wait, did we treat this as an unlisted action? Is that how we did? So we had issued a name deck last time, right? So we would just have to amend it as the next time. Okay. mean, legally, I don't have any problem with the idea of putting in temporary sedimentation and erosion control that I already have.
Well, that's the thing, it's a process that we started disturbance. Technically, they're required to provide temporary perimeter protections and environmental and erosion sediment controls. You know, until they can get this fully built, permanently stabilized and closed out, so, you know, this would just be like if silt fence fell over, you know, yes.
You have to maintain it.
Yeah, it's just maintaining your perimeter protections.
But that's, you know, it's not really a direction the planning board needs to give, I don't think.
Well, normally not normally, even on this plan, your environmental controls are on the plan. They didn't have a temporary sediment trap in this plan, you know, we could make that a condition that we put it in as part of their environmental control, their perimeter protections and environmental controls.
I think, yeah, I think it's better if you want that in, to have it on the plan and not have any ambiguity. And to have it be part of the approved plan, that, because, you know, you wanna be out there pre-construction and having it extended, you just don't wanna let somebody out there with a backhoe being cold.
No, Joe would have to identify it and size it and show it to somebody, it's not just
Okay,
dig a hole, you know,
Okay.
there's calculations for how big it is and everything else, and
is
there's
that,
guidelines in the manual on designing them and putting them in.
I don't think Spiro will go along with that, do anything until he has an approval. You know, it's-
Not to mention, I don't even know if I can get somebody that's gonna go do the work like that and then just leave and then wait for us to get approved and then come back. Like, I know that my contractor that's gonna do the work, which is not the same contractor that did it last time, they wanna come in, do the job, finish it and leave.
yeah,
They don't wanna come in and dig a couple of holes and stockpile stuff and then come back a month or however long later and they wanna come in, do their work and go.
yeah,
As a contractor, that's exactly true.
Hmm?
As a contractor, that's exactly true, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's a waste of their time
Yeah, it's just.
in a way, you know what I mean?
yeah, I mean, I don't doubt it would be an improvement, but I don't think it's the way to go.
The amount of time, so we're talking about a month away. I mean, it's gonna take them probably just as long to get somebody lined up, even to do something temporarily. So at that point, if we're headed down the path of being able to have a conditional approval next month, then it'd be a moot point.
Yeah, I'm just,
Yeah,
I'm concerned of getting it. My concern is getting it approved next month and getting it, I mean, that's the week before Thanksgiving, contractors are working on Thanksgiving, now we're into December. Doing this work in December is problematic.
My contractor already has the plans. So he knows what the project is and what's involved, it's just a matter of you guys approving it, so we can get going on what we need to do.
I've
So-
dealt with a lot of contractors that said that. you
Well,
know,
I actually work for them, so they're gonna be doing the work, so.
Okay, well, let's approve it at the next meeting, if that's where you're at. And then we have an approved plan, we have pre-construction with the contractor. I do think that's the right way.
And I just have one more question that I wanted to ask before. So, that's okay. So with regards to testing of the soil. You guys were stating that you wanna test the soil, but then you don't wanna wait for the results, you're just gonna continue with the project and cover it up. From what I understood. From my.
That was something I suggested, I don't.
So
think I heard
then what is the
concurrence.
purpose of testing the soil if there's no intention of doing anything with it?
I put more line, so that way we know what's there.
Okay, so then
So you-
hypothetically, if something came back and you guys already buried it,
But then we would know, it would be, to be a record of what's there. So at least, so say,
so it would still be okay just to bury it.
so that's what DEC, so even DEC can say you're gonna encapsulate it, and if that's fine, that's okay, but from what we're saying is. At least we would know that it's there, so that way, you know, 40 years down the line, you got, somebody else has this property,
I'm
Yeah.
asking
Yeah.
why you would
so.
test, but then not
Frequently-
wait for the results and then just bury it anyway.
Frequently on other sites that have contamination, the approach is to put a cap on and leave them there.
Okay,
So.
Just like we do with
You know
asbestos.
what's there, so when the next person comes by the land, you can divulge what's there rather than being a surprise.
We do that like with asbestos, where like you've identified, you tested, something's, it contains asbestos, you can encapsulate and leave it, but at least there's a survey that's done. So the building owner and whoever that building transfers, ownership to,
Mhm.
they have that survey. So at least it's already been identified, just so if, somebody's not inheriting something that could have been identified, then they have to deal with it down the road, that's
as
all.
long as
Yeah.
if there's a problem, as long as we're still okay to run our business.
Yeah.
And do whatever we need to do over there, because I really don't see there being a problem. We've had the water tested for the last 10 years, every 3 months.
Yeah.
And there hasn't been an
Yeah.
issue, so.
I think what Joe was saying earlier is, prior to you guys owning it, that's been a part, who knows what
I understand.
somebody else did, or, before you guys took ownership of it, so we're just trying to make sure that, future people are protected down the road, so.
Okay,
And appreciate all that, but I suggested that keep going. You guys agree with that? If you want to wait for the testing?
No, I think we can.
Well, yeah, that's why I asked the question,
Yeah.
if something pops or something comes up, is there a regulation that would make us deal with it? If there's no regulation that would make us deal with it, then
It depends entirely what is happening. So any testing company worth their salt is gonna use what's known as a PID meter. And they'll sniff the sediments as they're coming. If they're grossly contaminated, you should know it right away, right, Jeff?
Yeah.
And so that's what they'll do. The fine results, there are DEC limits of all kinds for all sorts of contaminants. If the end result is encapsulation anyhow, then I don't see them for a car wash requiring them to clean it up to some other type of standard. But that is outside our purview, that's DEC's purview. That's all.
Okay.
I mean, if it was my property and I was testing it, I wouldn't encapsulate it until I knew what the results were. But that, we can leave that option up to them because they're the ones that are at risk of somebody saying it's grossly contaminated and you have to remove it. Okay.
Yep.
And you're asking for sampling when DEC didn't, so, the likelihood of they're not gonna find anything, any gross contamination.
Okay.
As far as PFAS, I have no opinion.
so just for their if we're not hopefully gonna vote on this next month, would they be able to pump that operationally speaking, would this affect your operations? Could you pump that pond down now in the next week, say, up to the upper pond, just like you're gonna do during this construction process? Take those samples next week and potentially have the results before November
we would
16th.
have to, we need to put the 4th tank in.
Well, not.
No, I'm not saying take it out of operation.
Pump it, take the samples, then let it operate as a treatment basin.
I think we're also asking
Okay.
Doug to
To
provide
fill back
spec for
up.
sampling.
Right.
It will.
It will fill back up.
Yeah, but pump it in, but then you're gonna say at the top down.
Oh,
So you by yourself,
Go down to get the
Pump
sand,
down. and
then you have to pump it down
I
again
don't think that DEC
later on.
And did we want Doug to provide a spec for sampling?
Yeah, but say he got that spec,
Okay.
in the next few days. What I'm saying is, could they do it? I don't know how
I
it would
don't know if
affect
it'll
you.
dry out because we would have to shut the car wash down. We wouldn't be able to have people
Right.
coming in
And
there.
that's why I asked how would it affect
And I don't
the
know how
business.
long it'll take for that. Once you pump it out, it has to dry, right? In order for you to do the sampling?
No,
No.
actually, you don't have to pump it down to do the sampling either. You could just take a sample. I mean, the water can still be there and you can take a sediment sample. They do that all the time in the Hudson River, so it's possible to do it.
So
right?
you may be able to do that and have the results before
Yes.
next meeting, and then you wouldn't have that question of, capping it, you know, before you have the results.
They wouldn't have the results by the next meeting.
It
It
doesn't go
takes
that
longer
quick.
than that, but they could have the results before they encapsulate. Yeah, that's an option.
So we need to know what testing you would need,
Right.
and are we able to use the company that we use now?
Yeah, that'll just depend on whether
They have to
The
be-
certification.
they're certified to do it. That's- yeah.
They
They'll
are,
know that.
I already talked with them.
Okay. Yeah, we're not gonna tell you who to use, we're just gonna say they have to be plumbed.
Right. Yep,
Yeah.
well, they've been doing our water testing for 10 years, so.
Do we have any motions or we just?
Motion to
Good
table.
motion to, I'll make a motion to table Marcus special use permit till November 16th.
Second that.
Board member Novak,
Yes.
board member Howland,
Yes.
Chairman Schmidt.
Yes.
Vice Chairman Harris,
Yes.
board member Hoffman,
Yes.
board member Walpole.
Yes.
Fire over there. All right.
Yeah. Yeah.
You need a break?
My attorney's got all the answers, so.
Now that we got rid of that guy.
Yeah, he's.
Get on board. He's on the side.
Where'd you go? Going all the way out?
Oh, he's got, it's okay, he's supposed to sit and start. Okay, your business is Mike Walpole.
Mike Walpole is a
He is
member of
It's
the
a special use
planning board.
permit. to Allow a 2 single family dwellings on 1 lot.
Okay, so for the record,
Yes.
Mike Walpole, who is making this application, is a member of the planning board. So he's appropriately let everybody know that, and he's recused himself and left the room. But his representative is here.
Yes, Kelly DeNoyer, he's asked me to appear on his behalf in his application for the special use permit. Located on his property on Mill Pond Road. Mike is looking to add a second single-family home to his property. I think it's his intention to remove his current residence, which is pretty much right on top of the road there eventually, once he gets his new structure built. So he's got this beautiful piece of property, and I think he sees a much better use for it with something a little newer.
So the idea is eventually to have just one house on it. for a temporary-
Yes, for the time being, I mean, he obviously needs a place to live for the time that he's having the structure built. From my understanding, he is looking to have it removed as soon as he gets a CO for the new structure.
Okay, so it's not gonna be a subdivision, it's gonna be a demolish of
Correct,
the original. home.
Yep, but he obviously needs a place to live in the meantime.
Seems-
The only,
He only needs to, especially use according to the zoning, it's because he's leaving the other house. So he's gonna have 2 houses on 1 lot.
Right.
So he technically needs the special use, even though he's gonna demolish it.
Yes, but we think it would be a condition of time, right? You could say within.
Let's not do that, because what if he decides to use the structure for a garage or something? You know, is
Well, as long as
that
it's not a
possible?
residence, right?
It will be, that's the intention, to have it be his primary residence.
No, the old.
Oh, the old
The
house,
existing.
no, it's not possible, it has to be anything other than just a house.
That's okay, all right.
Yeah, I mean, there is a smaller garage off to the side of it, which I think he may end up keeping.
Okay.
As far as his septic and his septic system is here, his well is over here. I think he's gonna defer to whatever engineer he seeks for.
That was my
the
question.
plans. Yeah,
it's
he's-
gonna be a new septic and new well for this building, right? For this structure?
He's gonna defer to whatever engineer comes out and takes a look at it.
If the well is good, there's no reason to switch the well, so, but
But do you get into a kind of a spot needing enough capacity in the existing field for that layover period for them to approve the new building? If he's gonna reuse the existing septic field,
Well, yeah, he's got, yeah, it says existing, that's what that was the only question I wasn't sure of, whether it was.
So I follow your question, we can put a stipulation in that, you can only occupy one residence at a time or something like that.
yeah, cause then it wouldn't be a problem, but they're gonna wanna see that this septic can handle both houses.
I understand.
Like we just went through.
Yeah,
you see,
and the well can handle both houses.
Yeah,
So.
even though
Yeah.
it's a paper function,
Right.
you know, with the intent, but.
But for the record, that is not his intention to have both operational at the same time.
So if we ignore this for 2 years, it would be fine. I mean, what the condition is just taking the house and moving it, but it's just using it temporarily, okay?
Yeah.
So does this require a public hearing?
it does,
Does, yeah.
I'm thinking it's a type two.
it's definitely type two. It's definitely, I wish everything was a type two, but this is definitely a type two.
Chris wishes everything was a type two.
I sure do.
Yeah, I think all you have to do is set the public hearing, that's it.
Okay, all right. Let's all make a motion to set the public hearing for the Walpole for the special use permit on November 16th.
I'll second.
And you can ask him if he's comfortable with the condition that says they both will be occupied simultaneously.
Okay, you want me to go ask him next?
No.
Or another
no,
time?
Next time.
Okay,
He can
okay.
tell us.
Vice Chairman Harris,
Yes.
Board Member Hoffman,
Yes.
Chairman Schmidt,
Yes.
Board Member Novak,
Yes.
Board Member Hartman.
Yes.
That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Now you
you
gotta go
for
find
your
it.
patience. That sounded like you. Much you as well.
Tell me I'm getting 18 dollars.
Allow back in.
Grocer. Oh, my goodness.
Okay, our final item on tonight's agenda is old business.
Sorry.
Stephanie and Louis Foley,
Good evening, everybody.
92 Croton Road.
My husband apologizes for not being able to be here. He's stuck in Dallas on a delayed flight. And I also apologize for, oh, the map is, when did you do that? Oh, okay. Okay. So, the old map is up there, but I have a current one with the new lines drawn for our last meeting.
Oh, this is Monica Pond. Okay.
Corinne, is the one in our binders, the new one or the old one?
Old one, no,
Okay.
I took it down.
Be right back.
Oh, yeah. I don't really know what I'm looking at, so you should have this.
Yep, yep, off road. Yep. Good.
I don't see it.
DOT right away, so that probably.
So this hand.
This-
He's gonna sell this. Sell that.
Yeah.
Oh, you want the sewer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's, we still in there, no wetlands.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's enough room to fit a house and a septic system in here. You don't have wetlands flagged, but. And it looks like.
One spot down at the corner, they have it. Yeah. Yeah.
Where's that coming from?
No,
That whole thing.
Yeah.
so does that mean that it's all lit?
Yeah.
Eventually, then I accepting that.
Oh,
Yeah, this is high and dry.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Chad, did you do a delineation?
We did not.
So where are you getting that wetland buffer from?
So there, someone had done a delineation because there was evidence of wetland flagging on there when our surveyors did the survey work actually this week with the field work. I'm like,
So why did you put a buffer on there? How did you get determined
well,
that
if
it
you
was
go on the DEC
mapper?
mapper thing, it shows their DEC wetlands and you know as well as I do, 100 feet. But they obviously this, for this purpose, this is for subdivision purpose, so if someone were to go for. To build a house, they can ask DEC for reduction in that, but we're showing what it is.
So you've got the 100-foot buffer, but is there a line on here showing the flags that you picked up?
Yeah, it's hard to see with the photo, I was debated whether to print it with the photo, or without the photo. Without the photo, you can see the line of wetland flags, it goes,
You want to come here?
well,
Let's see, I'm
part of the.
Turn on the light, maybe. Yeah.
The wetland
I'm
flag,
having
yeah,
trouble
well,
seeing what the yellow one. Ooh, much better. Oh my gosh.
Well, we'll go all within here, cause you got a 5 foot. Drainage pipe is getting water off the DEA going through here, there's drainage. Flows. This is another drainage.
I saw that.
Discharge that comes over here.
So I guess the question is there really enough land to build a house?
Yeah. On, just to be specific, proposed lot 1. So the remaining lot is fine, that's an existing house.
Yeah,
So, and remaining lot, I don't understand how you can have 2 remaining lots, that doesn't make any sense to me, but. Cause
Well,
that's gonna
my
be separate
understanding-
from that.
My understanding is they're gonna do subdivision and a lot line adjustment, so to speak, taking, because they own this, the applicant owns this parcel as well. So we're gonna take it 60 feet here.
Yeah.
I guess because we're, after I had a discussion Tuesday with Chris about the flag lot, that's how we got in. It was a 60-foot minimum access frontage, wide access to the road. So technically it becomes a flag lot, so I guess the determination would be. What is rear, what is side, what is front, the setback.
so right now, this is one lot, and then,
Well, this is
Yeah.
here. This is the original one lot. I'm sorry.
okay, so you're adding this strip to this.
Yes, and then subdividing this from that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you currently have 1 lot and you will have 3 lots.
We have 2 lots.
Okay,
They're gonna make one of the lots a little smaller, and then they're gonna subdivide.
This,
That 60-foot strip
Yeah.
is coming off the new one.
so this should be
And
lot
we move to this one.
2,
right.
this is
So this
lot
right now is
1,
lot.
and this is gonna
Yeah.
be lot 3.
And then this,
Okay.
including this bank
Right,
is. this
But it's
big
also
one.
remaining lot, one remaining.
So they wanna
Yeah.
subdivide this.
Proposed new
from
lot.
this, and then
Yeah.
they need this area here.
And so where would the house be on the new lot?
Sure, looks like
There's
3
no
lots.
setbacks and-
1,000%, or
Yeah, yes, 3 out of 2.
Fit
Do
there.
we have the
Well,
original
Well,
configuration of the lots anywhere?
This is the 8-foot. Rear setback, again, this would be determined.
Well, you could get a variance potentially from the setbacks.
Oh, I guess this is.
We're still looking at this as 2 different projects, if you will. The first thing we wanna do is subdivide the 11 acres off so that we can put the existing house on the market. Then we wanna really assess what's going on with the wetlands, what we can do with the property, figure that out kind of as a phase 2 of this. And sort of kick the can down the road on that a little bit, we're more
Yeah, but
worried
we
about
can't.
this.
Yeah, we've gotta make sure you have a buildable lot.
But what we could do, instead of doing the 3, we could just use lot line adjustment to make this lot
Well, it's
smaller.
a bigger
Yeah.
one.
And all of this remains part of the big one, and then you
Then
can do
it's
your
no
assessment.
problem.
for
Okay.
that.
Because right now, with this all being wetlands, putting a driveway through this, getting permitting for the driveway is gonna be almost impossible and way too costly. So I don't think the orientation of this flag lot, based on the significance of the wetlands, is gonna be in your best interest. But I understand what the immediate need is to get this broken off so
So
you
if
can
it's
sell
a
it.
lot line adjustment. then this procedurally is very simple.
Yes.
We can push it to Chris and just do a lot line adjustment right now. To do this, obviously, they're gonna have to change their plan, the plan, but he can work, they can work right with. Chris to do that lot line adjustment, and then we can work on. You can work with your engineer to figure out a better. Subdivided lot that's actually gonna be buildable.
Right, just so I understand is, we're gonna do a lot line adjustment where we would give this piece to this lot.
Yes.
So this would, the original acreage would increase here, then this would go down to 5 acres and become.
And then that's something that you
The
can
concern
work.
is, we can't subdivide a lot that's not built,
Right,
and that's the concern, there's only one spot here to build
because of the wetland.
because of wetlands.
Can you show us, is what you wanna do then just this?
Yes.
That's what you wanna
Does
do.
that.
And 5 acres. As well as setbacks on there, we include the code.
Just this piece, so that's 5 acres, and that's what you wanna sell the old house by?
Yeah.
Okay, and this road here, Crowfield Road, did we decide, is that a public or private road?
Oh, that's town,
That's a
town,
public road,
Yeah.
okay, all right, then yes, you can do that.
yeah, you also, I don't know what the restrictions would be from DOT crossing that drainage easement. For your driveway,
Depends on whether it was exclusive or not.
there's a lot of questions. And you may find an easier way to get this lot for your son to build a house on.
So Lou was under the understanding last time, and I'm just gonna let everybody know. There's no intention to ever even put a driveway there. None.
But we have to have a lot.
I know, so that's why they did the flag lot the way they did without even thinking about the wetlands, because there's no intention of ever putting a driveway there.
They're gonna come up.
They're gonna come off this driveway, 'cause
Access even.
Yeah.
But if we do the land swap now, then they would just come back for a subdivision of this lot, and we would show access easement for the lot.
So then this may need to get bigger this way
To get a.
to get an buildable area.
Yeah.
That's right.
But they have
Plenty of
ultimate flexibility,
yeah.
but vastly more flexibility even at that.
Yeah. Yep.
There's a lot you can do with that, but
Yeah.
you can't ever assume DEC is gonna give you a permit for an adjacent area.
Yeah.
Cause, I mean, I had to advise somebody once not to buy land for exactly that reason, cause you just, they can tell you how to sell it.
Yeah.
Worked us out of the barn on that one. We already have it, so the land, we already.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
I know.
No,
Oh,
but
you should be fine.
here, I think you had enough upland to figure something out.
Okay.
It just may not be, it's not this configuration.
Okay. And I don't think he necessarily was super worried about that. We were trying to do what seemed like was the right thing last time, to break this off. I think this is his more immediate concern, because the colder it gets, the less likely we are to sell.
Well, and honestly, this
It's good
plan
things up
actually
for
makes
you.
it quicker than if
Yeah.
you.
You'd be
Doing
done
the other-
tonight, you'll be done tonight, and then you just go with this, yeah.
Yeah.
But you'll have to come back on everything but this piece.
And that's okay, because we're not in a hurry to do anything else. We can take our time and do it right and make sure it's.
Okay.
perfect.
And you
Yeah.
really, most importantly, you wanna hire somebody to go out and do a wetland delineation. And then have your surveyor pick it up, so you know where.
Exactly
stuff
where
is.
they are.
Yeah.
We can do that, sorry, guy. Someone that did something, was there evidence of wetland flags, there's a whole road, 2 roads of them, and the guy could go across.
I think his name is Steve George, I ring about. Or something.
Steve George is very qualified.
He's the one that put the flags.
I understand, but when and for what
Yeah.
purpose?
Mhm.
Do we have any idea?
No, yeah, I'm pretty sure you had him come out and do that recently.
Well, then there should have been a wetland report.
Right.
And a
There
map
may
with
be.
the flags.
There may be.
Okay. But you can use that to guide where you put the boundaries in the future.
Okay.
Okay? It doesn't have anything to do with this. This is all existing. And the septic and well is within the 5 acres. Do we know that?
As far as I know, it is.
It's not shown on the plan.
Hard to see as far as. 180 is within,
Oh, wait a minute, there's something right here.
This, maybe it's-
it's definitely been in the back, well, it's. One thing is up here.
But you picked it up on your survey?
Yeah. It's hard to see it at a hard scale. Again, I debated whether to print it with this on, it would make it easier for people to understand
Where.
where it is versus just seeing lines and. Like the spot here.
So I guess
10 feet off the.
when you submit your plan to Chris, taking this off, you know, doing the lot line adjustment, just Chris, if you can make sure that the septic and well is within the 5 acres.
On the, within, 10 feet off of the boundary.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you'll just have to change the boundary.
Yeah,
to-
which. wouldn't be that.
But at least they don't have to come back to us as long as we make that a condition of the resolution. So Chris, you're clear on this?
Yeah.
Just the one lot in the corner, make sure it has the well and the septic all in the line.
Yeah.
Wells are in really great places. Everybody mark this not approved. So we don't have any confusion. I think to go with your motion, Mike. To go with your motion, can you mark up the map? So it's clear what we're approving and what needs to be shown on it before Chris can sign off on it.
Is this line, the existing line of this lot, or is this line? So
It's the closer one.
it would be this line.
The wider.
Where's your map?
It's a bigger.
It's a bigger.
Yeah.
That's because this. Like, here, this, we're taking this corner. And rolling up with this, right? Yes. Right? Yeah.
Corinne has a.
Just mark it up.
That, I don't think I'm like, you mark that one up? No.
It's just a copy.
So basically, yeah, all we're doing is taking this.
Is that what you said of the new one? Or is that-
That's no.
You see all of them? Yeah. So.
While you're waiting for the sheet. A bit cool. Mike's looking shifty. that's-
Well, you wanna know why? Because I remembered this morning, driving to work, I go, there was a training this month and I'm like, I was gonna go to, and I'm like,
How many hours do we?
Do you have extra from last year though?
I don't know. I do way more than 4 hours of training.
I
So no
know.
matter again, I just did one actually for,
Well, you get extra credit for that, don't you?
what?
It carries over, you can carry over.
Yeah, very good.
hours.
it was one and only hour, and I was like,
Yeah, right. And then. What's the extra credit get?
More-
A gold star, cup of coffee. Gold star.
No,
Donut.
You get 2 credits for 1 credit if you, so you get, I mean, really, literally extra credit.
All right, for the Lou and Stephanie McCauley lot line adjustment, I make the following motion. The planning board determines that the proposed lot line adjustment neither creates nor increases any significant planning issues with respect to the existing or potential future use of the involved parcel. That's correct. And then no additional lots will be created as a result of the lot line adjustment. The planning board declares the proposed action to further exempt from any of the further subdivision review pursuant to Article 3.4 and refers to application to the code enforcement officer to complete the administration of the same. When you're doing that, we want to make sure that the new lot does not create an issue with the well or septic system setbacks. That good?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll second.
Vice Chairman Karen,
Yes.
Board Member Novak,
Yes.
Chairman Schmidt,
Yes.
Board Member Houghton,
Yes.
Board Member Hoffman,
Yes.
Board Member Wolf.
Yes.
Ta-da.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Moving quickly, minute approvals, minutes approval,
Just.
1 minute,
One, sorry.
1 minute to approve. Sit there now.
Tired, look at her.
Oh, I'm good. Yeah, I'm happy to go last. That was intimidating having all the people here before.
So I was thinking we should like try to make the short ones in the beginning of the.
Well, I mean, that would be good too, but at least I don't have a car wash. I'm sitting there thinking the whole time, good, it's not a car wash.
Hey, with that pond in your lot there, you might.
Put some bumper boats in there or something, have a little great escape.
I did not have any comments on the minutes, thank you. Well done.
I'll make the motion to accept the minutes.
I'll second.
Board Member Hoffman,
Yes.
Board Member Novak.
Yes.
Chairman Schmidt.
Yes.
Vice Chairman Harris,
Yes.
Board Member Houghton.
Yes.
Board Member Wolf.
Yes.
Motion to adjourn?
You had an item you wanted to talk about, was that? After, okay.
We're out of here. Thank you so much,
Thank you.
everybody. Thank you.
We adjourn before we-
I just want to, is it official? Kind of.
Take care.
I don't really know how that would be.
Well, I do actually have one more thing too. So the, Jeff, don't throw anything at me, I'm sorry. Thank you, there's a septic local law inspection that's being proposed, it's a new program, it's a local law. I'll email it to you all, or actually, Corinne, if you could do that. It basically is in the L2 district, the Duane Lake district only. Upon transfer of any property, the septic system will have to be inspected, it'll have to meet certain standards. If it doesn't, then they have to fix it. It's just a way of trying to deal with people drinking lake water, basically. So if you all have any recommendations for the town board, you know, feel free to ship them to me and I will pass them along.
So would that
I wanna take a
be
look at that.
require planning board approval then?
No.
That's it? No, okay.
No. It's being stuck in the zoning because of really, we're only gonna have it apply in that one area. For instance, Mariahville Lake, it has a septic, it has a wastewater treatment system, right? And there aren't any other lakes that are really used publicly very well, like that one. Which my kid trespassed in. It's not been, you know, it was a long time ago.
Yeah.
He's 30 now. But I don't, there's no other lakes in town where people swim in or drink out of or anything like that, so. So if you have any, so that was that. So I don't know, what was the other thing, Chris?
It's a Dollar General thing,
Oh, go ahead, yeah, go ahead.
so. They still haven't gotten water.
So why they have, is that why they have the portable toilet up there? Okay.
So, they're going back and forth with the state. And instead of drilling another well, they're trying to prove that they don't need any more water than they're making, which is 4.4 gallons an hour. Not a minute, an hour. So, it's just basically going back and forth. I guess my question is, like, right now, I'm letting them operate 30 days at a time on a TCO. How long do I let this go? And I kind of just needed
Well,
some guidance, because I don't.
So technically, I've been running a building for a year on a TCO.
So technically, they can only.
Just have to keep renewing it.
It's only 6 months in the town of Williamsburg.
Oh, so is there, usually as long as you keep if you have to keep re-upping the PCO for some reason.
so was one of our conditions of the approval that they get Department of Health approval on the well?
Yeah, that's what they're trying to do.
Yeah,
Yeah, they're just all screwed up.
so
Well, no,
could we amend the permit if they to provide another water source, like a tank. Yeah, a holding
It's
tank.
not a residence.
No, that's within the authority of the Department of Health, not us.
Is it because they're not getting enough water, Chris? Is that?
The Department of Health told them no to a storage tank.
Really?
They said it's no longer a permanent solution.
Okay.
The problem they're not getting enough water, is that what it is?
Yeah, they don't have the recovery because, so technically, they're supposed to produce a certain amount of gallons a day for 2 bathrooms and a drinking fountain.
Yeah.
They're not even close to meeting those expectations.
Then if that's what's required, that's what they need, so I think they have to redrill.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have to.
Well, so the other problem they have is, Jeff's laughing because this is, so the other problem they have is because of the 200-foot buffer, they can't put a well, they can't drill anywhere else on the property. To
Now,
within-
DOH has the ability to make
Right.
waivers with respect to that,
Right.
so that's
They're not even entertaining the other well, though, and I don't know how many times I've told them
who entertaining.
Primax.
Right, right, so the Department of Health is not standing in the way of the other well because of some buffer requirement. The problem is, it's a, what is that, non-community public water supply, because more than, it's not.
25, yeah.
Right, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So they have to even meet a higher standard than the typical shitty well in Twinsburg.
Yeah.
Nobody's here, don't write that down, where it's like 5, oh, sorry, okay.
I did ask.
Forever memorialized.
That was, I apologize. So usually, you get 5 gallons per, what is it?
Per minute.
Minute.
Yeah,
You're
that's,
doing less than that.
some, yeah, that's.
That's what they're getting, or that's what they use?
That's
what
what
they
That's what we're going to do.
Oh, I thought you were saying they were trying to go based on what they use, which is 4 gallons a day or whatever.
So what they're trying to do is they're trying to prove to the state, because now
Oh,
the
okay,
state-
all
the
right.
state's now involved.
Yeah.
The county pushed this off to the states and we need help with this. They're trying to prove to the state and the county that they don't need to produce any more than 4.4 gallons a minute or an hour.
I mean, but that's gonna cause issues if for the reuse of that building, if it ever, there's like no future for it.
I have no intention of giving them
Yeah.
to Dale right now, I'm just
Yeah.
saying, I don't know how long,
we.
because Dale told me it's 6 months is the max. So.
And that's Dwaynesburg policy or state code policy, because maybe that's could get some kind of waiver for that, or variance, how would that work?
Well. So TCO is not something that we regulate, like the planning board doesn't regulate that, that would come out of the building. That would come out of the building code, which would be the uniform state building code.
Right.
So I will have to look at that, how long it can continue, but, we made the condition that we made, and honestly, we couldn't do it any other way because it's outside of our hands. So I don't think there's anything the planning board can do.
Well, they're kind of not in compliance with their site plan right now because they have a bathroom in the parking.
Yeah, but they have a TCO while they try to fix it. So that's fine. I mean, it's just that somebody needs to convince them to drill another
Well, of
well.
course, that's what I get the most complaints about, is the bathroom.
Well, I mean,
Well, honestly.
Well, you don't have to get those phone calls, Mr. So.
I mean, could they move it to the side?
Well, no, because you want to make it accessible for the customers, like you don't want to put it in the back corner.
We can't shut them down, I mean, I
well,
don't think
you,
that's.
I mean, no, you could pull their special use permit because.
I would totally not recommend that you do that.
I mean, they're.
Well, I mean, well, basically, it's the TC, well, you can now renew the TCO, that's the leverage, say, hey,
But I mean, the state might make that decision.
Right.
For them, I mean, if or for you.
Yeah, we're sidelined in this, waiting for the state to tell them.
There's pretty intelligent people, so that's why I was just. I said some.
wealth of knowledge.
I mean, I would just say.
I'm just curious about the neighboring properties. I mean, the dentist's office, they've gotta use a lot of water for a dentist's office.
Yeah.
And that, I mean,
Well, and those 3 new houses that, you know, are in the commercial.
Yeah, that's why you should just get the well logs from those guys, you know?
I mean, have they hydrofracked, have they?
Yeah, they're down 802 feet.
Oh,
So they had hands.
They went past the water. They missed the straw and now they're trying to home.
yeah,
500-foot hands, yeah.
Who's drilling?
Anson drilled it.
and they hydrofracked and they still don't have anything?
Not even in the standpipe? That I don't get.
What's the
I mean-
static level?
I mean,
It's deep.
It's deep.
What, it was a gallon and a half.
Down
Yeah.
They could have cut 800-foot.
So the reserve and the pipe, because it's 802 feet. With all, I mean, there's a lot of casing. Yes, that would meet their criteria. The problem is if that water ever, because toilet got stuck down there, if that water ever got used.
They can't
recover.
Yeah, it's gonna take them.
Yeah,
Won't be able to recover.
Month to get back.
Yeah,
also then what they do is they call A1. and they
A1
put the
water
water in the
service,
water.
but that's utilizing storage and you're saying Department of Health doesn't allow storage as.
Everybody in town has storage in their well, but
No.
yeah.
I don't know if this has something to do with public.
It's the public water, so
Public
it's
water
a,
supply.
yes,
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to even track the recovery, you know.
yes.
Well, they had asked me about tanks and I told them I can't make that decision.
No,
You
no.
need to Talk to the county.
The reality is their water needs are very, very low, you know, and they're probably treating it as.
Look at that, well, full wells, I mean, elementary school's got 4 wells, I think.
Do they?
Yeah, because some of them only produce like 2 gallons a minute.
Yeah.
So there's 4 wells plus there was 2 holding tanks there.
4 gallons an hour.
Don't tell me to say something bad again.
I guess Chris just push it with the state, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I've been in, I don't know, I haven't talked to anybody from the state, cause I have no idea. But I've been talking with Dom.
Yeah.
And Dom's kind of keeping me in the loop, but.
So who are they dealing with at Dollar General that doesn't seem to understand what's going on?
It's Primax Properties is the owner of the building,
Is
so
it-
it's really not Dollar General's issue, it's
It's
private.
developers.
Is it, so is Bowler still involved or not?
No, I'm dealing directly with Robert Thornton from Primax Properties.
Alright, does he know that Dale has identified that this can only be a 6-month process?
Yeah, I've told him that.
Okay.
What month are they on now?
Side 4.
That's
No.
gonna be close now.
The next one will be 4.
So
Wow,
basically have to them.
It started in August,
okay.
so August, September, October, November.
That's great Black Friday sales, if they got no water, out of business in Black Friday.
Yeah, they
I
should,
would double check on that,
6
the
months.
TCO thing. See if we really do have a little bit on that, because
Let's see it written down if you tell them.
I mean, I currently have a project where we keep, because we're still doing, it's multiple phase, so we have TCOs for portions of the building. So it just every 90 days, we have to write a check for another $165 to bring up the TCO, but it's been extended, we were probably 9 months to a year out on that right now.
Yeah, I'll try to find it, I just know that he told me it was 6 months. Not to give anybody, you can't give anybody, the word was can't.
Yeah.
Not don't, it was, we can't give anybody.
Yeah.
So
I'll
I'll ask him where that is.
Yeah.
You gotta find out.
Because they might call you out on that, if you say that to them, say, well, show us where that order is.
They'll sue you the next day.
Yeah.
It's the game. Legal issue.
I mean, they really just.
Porta potty, put a fence up.
Well, cause it's you're looking at the building from the left, right? Facing the 3 houses across the road. If they put it on the right side.
If
facing the
it
gas,
continues
they would-
for a more, an extended period of time, could we ask them to provide one of those upscale porta potties that don't look like
That's what it
Blue
is.
House?
That's what it is, it's trailer one.
Oh, okay, it is one of the. I was thinking it was just a.
No, it's not John's. Okay.
So, I mean, those, unless you know what you're looking at, you won't even know that
It's a trailer.
Yeah.
Do you know how much that thing costs?
Oh, yeah.
I was just saying that, anybody complaining about that, there's just.
So it's a 6 grand.
It's not your.
Yeah,
big job.
no, that's,
It's like
so that, I was like,
North
we
Way.
make them put one of the nights look better, but they get the hard car.
Very big.
So one of the things I got too though is that that's not. So them, those executive bathrooms aren't ADA.
They can make them ADA.
Yeah,
It should be.
And it should be.
It's an issue, definitely.
So they can put ramps on them to make them
Yeah, well,
ADA.
I have to call them anyway because this one also doesn't have any heat.
So those are all issues that they can rectify.
Okay.
Yep.
We should try to.
So the bill just went from 2,000 to 4,000, that's all.
There you go.
So we'll spend $1,000 a week on the board job, they won't pay the $10,000 to get any well.
It keeps on getting.
Yeah,
Well,
I
look, there's
understand
the
that.
200-foot buffer for it, but they can waive that.
The Department of Health, if you've got good cause, can do that, or they can go to the dentist and ask for the easement, you know, I mean, there's lots of things there's lots of ways to
I mean, they
skin
did,
that
the
cat.
dentist did deny an easement to begin with the septic, wasn't that? It was-
No, that was the guy next door, wasn't it?
I don't remember, I thought there was a letter to the dentist.
No, they were fearful of crossing the problem with the entrance.
Yeah.
That was for the sewer main down here.
Well, thank goodness they have a suit.
Yeah.
I
But
mean,
if nothing's going
Oh,
on,
oh,
you could have held that.
the county can let them put a well, and, cause if you remember, there was a gentleman in here that was complaining about that easement for the well.
Well, that,
It's not an easement.
Well, no, they have an easement from.
So, yeah, the buffer
Pine Grove,
from the
remember?
other.
Yes, he
well.
had the issue with them, he was in one of the planning
it's
meetings.
it's not an easement, what it is the guy that bought that from Eric Dolan.
Yeah.
Took his property subject to whatever they need to do on Dollar General to have a well or other easement, so. That, when he bought the property, that right was already taken away. Okay, so it's a little bit different than an easement, you know what I mean? It was like,
The restrictive covenant. right?
yeah, almost, more like that, yeah. Yeah, and because Eric owned all of that, you know, the guy that's building all the storage. So,
Right.
yeah,
So that was just that the other well, the existing well in the back was too close to the property line, was that what that was?
he was concerned that he wouldn't be able to do anything within that, you know,
The buffer.
the buffer.
Yeah.
And the answer was, well, that's just the way it is when you bought it.
Yeah.
So,
That the buffer was set, it was part of the record, the documents, you bought a parcel that had a restriction line on
right,
it, so. Do your due diligence if you didn't want that, don't buy the property, you know,
right.
so.
Well, the only reason I've been going 30 days at a time instead of the full 6 months is so that this doesn't drag out and. But
Why-
it's starting to look like it's doing that anyway.
Why don't they go back to Eric and see if they can put a well on the used storage property and then pipe it through? Cause that's at a higher elevation. That's another option going back.
Because they're hung up on trying to prove that they don't need any, I've suggested the well, I even suggested getting a local. Well driller who knows the land, like who knows what's going on with,
Right.
you know, who's probably drilled most of those wells, if not all of those wells in that area.
If I was Eric, I wouldn't do that because now I'm restricting the rest of my property because now you're gonna have a 200-foot buffer around a public water supply well.
He's got a lot of property.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't, he'd have to go through Pine Grove, you got to get permission.
Oh, he had to go through that other part.
Their ownership behind, doesn't Eric still own behind Pine Grove? I think he probably does.
For now,
Yeah,
I know that there's a guy that's trying to buy that piece of property.
well, you gotta do something. You know, you can't just try to browbeat the state, is that what? I mean, at least you guys, saved them from creating a lot that we couldn't build on here, so it was a good day.
Make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Alright.
Vice Chairman Harris.
Yes.
Board Member Hoffman.
Yes.
Chairman Schmidt. Board Member Novak.
Yes.
Board Member Howard.
Yes.
Board Member Walpole.
Yes.
Thank you for it. And I want to note it in the minutes, this is possibly the most uncomfortable chair I've ever.